So we're going to talk about how to engage your learners. And as Nate mentioned, I'm with the College of Arts and Sciences, and we call ourselves Transformational Teaching and Learning. So we've put this presentation or the workshop together, or actually this is just a presentation. It was initially planned as a workshop or something else. So this presentation is going to be more like a crash course. So, you know, won't go into all of the nitty-gritty and the hands-on part of the workshop. But put this together with certain resources. We've done a lot of sessions before based on the second one, which was an article from 2011, Taylor and Parsons. And we used to call it the 6 pillars of engagement. And Nate knows about that because we've offered that together multiple times. But then this one is a little different twist on the same thing. So they have some things very that are consistent and common between those. But this particular one is based on the book Brilliance by Design, where Halsey talks about the letters in the word engage, the E.N.G.A.G.E, and all of those letters mean something or stand for something as an acronym, and that's together it makes it how do we engage our students. But it not only applies to a student population or in a classroom, but just anything in general, whether it's professional development or a TED Talk or keynote speakers or whatever it might look like. And then of course we have all of the other resources that we've used in terms of active learning, as well as Bloom's taxonomy and so on and so forth. So looking at Brilliance by Design, you can go to the next slide. Before that, let's look at this slide here, and you might have seen this slide before. What do you see? This is basically a brain scan of students at during different activities. And what is it that you see? What are some of the patterns that you see here in this? And what is something that is really striking out to you? Yes.
In the classes, their brains are not working.
Okay, and what does that look similar to? When they're sleeping, and that's what one of our things on our word cloud was as well. An engaged classroom is when students are awake. So if you see on this graph, and she's absolutely right, that the brain activity during class time is very similar to the brain activity during sleep, which is not a whole lot of brain activity. When is it that the activity is really high? During which activity is the brain really functioning? And sorry, homework and studying? Perfect. Yes, during homework, their activity is really high. During lab, the activity is high. During studying, the activity is high. What about watching TV?
Not so much.
Not so much, just similar to class time and sleep time? Right. So now, when are they mostly doing homework or studying? Where do they do their homework and study?
At home while they're watching TV.
At home or while they're watching TV. Well, that's an interesting way to look at it. Yes, the students do homework while watching TV. I do homework while I'm watching TV, but I also do only things that are rote work, not really something that really needs me to be fully engaged in what I'm doing. So that is correct. If the highest activity in the brain is happening during homework and studying with or without TV, why don't we want to shift that to the opposite side, where we want that activity to happen in the classroom instead of happening at home, where the instructor is not available or their peers are not available to actually help them create that knowledge together. So that's when the whole idea of flipped learning or active learning comes in, where you do more of the activity-based learning in class with discussions and problem solving and group work and all of that during class, while at home you could be watching a lecture or doing something that can be done outside of the classroom and doesn't need a whole lot of brain activity. So going with that, if we want to really, the next one, we've already discussed that. So going with that, it's all about active learning if you engage them in activities. And that's why lab work really helps. And so if you really engage them in activities and hands-on learning, that's when they really will be able to retain their information versus just by hearing or watching or listening, they may not retain much information. So coming to the model explained in the book, there's basically a mindset shift from a 70-30 equation, or shifting in that equation, where initially, traditionally, 70% of the time is the instructor talking and 30% is when the students talk, to changing that to where we want students to be doing more of the talking, more of the teaching to each other, or understanding and generating meaning together, and also spending more time. Traditionally, we spend more time, or 70% of our time, thinking about what we want to teach. Rather, we should have a mindset shift and think about how do we want to teach. So think of teaching as a performance, and how do we want to most effectively teach. And so it's the how of the teaching versus just the what of the teaching. And instead of just doing the concepts, we want to do more of the application based. So in this particular book, Brilliance by Design, she looks at the 6 letters of the word engage, and each of the letters stand for something that together helps in student engagement or engaging your audience. So E is the energize your learners. How do we energize our learners? How will we help them navigate our content? How do we help them generate meaning, have them generate the meaning from what they've learned? How do we have them or help them apply those concepts and skills and things that they're learning in classroom to the real world? And the G, how do we gauge where they are at? How do we help them gauge where they are at? And then also, how do we just really extend the learning beyond just the classroom into real life situations and really apply it? So that's the model that we're going to follow. Unfortunately, since we have only 1 hour, and I do want to go through all of the 6 letters, it won't be a very hands-on workshop, and I still want you guys to be talking and participating. We may not be able to get to the 70-30 mindset shift on the equation just because. But again, we've offered this workshop in a larger time frame for 4 hours, and that really becomes more hands-on and be able to do it with the 70-30 mind shift. But let's look at the first letter of the word engage, and the E stands for how do we energize our learners? Does anyone have any examples of how they've energized their learners before they come to class or right at the beginning of class? Yes. Playing music. Awesome. I like that. How do you decide which music to play? Awesome. So upbeat music, get them excited and energized and ready for the class. Perfect. What about you, sir?
So I also use music the first day of class, do a poll and ask them to put in their favorite music artist. We make up a playlist for the class. I do have the instructor prerogative. If I don't like the music, I don't put it on the playlist. But
so you do have your
Yeah,
academic freedom and autonomy.
yeah, the filter there. But since you have the picture up there, for one of our assignments, one of our projects, they're analyzing a construction crane. And so I have a model of a construction crane. And before we start the project, we have to get into a proper personal protection equipment, the hard hat, the safety vest, the goggles, the boots, all that stuff.
Perfect. Awesome. So music, and we take everyone's favorite music, and he also puts in a little bit of academic freedom spin on it and decides which one to play and which one not to play. Well, what else? So music is a great way to engage in, and having them play music at the beginning of the class based on their preferences and likes really helps them feel more at home and feel like they're part of a classroom where they're being heard, and they're excited because we don't know which music the instructor is going to play today. What else?
In the Zoom chat, sorry. new movie or series has been released, students love to talk about that.
Perfect. Yes. So it's something that's very relevant to them, that's happening in their daily lives. They went and watched Barbie, and now let's talk about Barbie. That's the recent one I watched. But yeah, so, and especially if that movie or that new TV show or series can actually be in some way attached or connected to what they're going to learn that day, that makes it even more relevant and close to home, because now they're able to experience that in while they're watching their favorite TV show or while they're watching their movie, and actually be able to connect those dots. And that ends up being how they can actually extend their learning outside of the classroom, and also how they can generate a meaning as well as apply those concepts. So using the trending videos or trending news articles or anything that's happening in real life and or that is relevant to them, and applying that to their to what's being taught that day really helps with the generation of meaning, as well as applying to the real world. So you can also do polls. Like, for example, we did a poll this morning when we started the session, and we wanted to see what an engaged classroom looks like, and then have some discussions around it as well. So those are options as well. Has anyone seen Dr. Tatiana? Okay, I see a lot of nods. So she's a professor in the Department of Physics and has gone viral. So has the Department of Physics YouTube channel that has gone viral with more than 3.2 million subscribers. And this particular video has, I think, about 2 million views. And she basically teaches some concepts of physics. For example, in this particular egg drop video, she teaches about inertia in a very engaging and fun way. And it's really short. She keeps it to, she's going with the trend of TikTok, and likely, tries to keep the videos really short, but something that can really be exciting for our students. You can do it as a video, or she actually does it in real time in classroom. And she gets the students excited. Do you want to play that video, Nate?
For this demonstration, you need a lot of courage and faith in the laws of physics. I have here a paper cylinder left over from a roll of toilet paper, and I have a raw egg. I will mount this raw egg on the top of the cylinder. The cylinder is on the plate over the glass with water. Now this courage and faith part comes. I will hit this plate with my hand, and I will hit it hard without hesitation. If I do it right, then the plate will fly, the roll will fly, but the egg will not fly. It has inertia, so it will just fall into this glass with water. If I lose my confidence in physics, then and I don't hit it hard enough, then this plate will fly too slow. The egg will fly away, and I'll create a mess. Let's see what I can do. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Thank you, Nate. So yeah, just to think about inertia and doing a demonstration like that in class, or showing a video of something like that in class, can really get students excited about this. Any questions or comments or an example from your particular fields? Anyone from Zoom? No? All right. Well, then let's go to the next slide. All right. So that was all about energizing. And so you can do multiple, you can add your own spin to it, your own flavor to it. And you can do really, it can also be just an email or an announcement that you send out of Canvas with a newspaper article that you read, or maybe a video that you watched on TikTok and would like to share it with them, because it really connects with that days or that concept that you're going to be teaching. So you can go full blown and do an experiment, or do demonstration in class, or you can just find something and not have to recreate it, but make it relevant to what you're teaching. Coming down to the N, which stands for navigate, and that is something that's really important and really kind of ties with using Canvas in the most efficient and effective way for our students. And basically, we've already done a few things that are very helpful, which is A&M provides templates to everyone when they are an instructor of record, and the template is added to your course. And if you follow that template and just kind of make each and every module or week or whatever you want to call it, unit, consistent to each other, that really helps with helping students how to navigate. What we really want to achieve here with the navigation and easy navigation is that we don't want our students to use their cognitive facilities and all of that cognitive we want them to be thinking about the content in that cognitive way and not be overloaded because of how they can navigate and find things on a course. So we don't want that navigation to become a cognitive load. Rather, we want them to really work and look at the content itself and apply it and work on those activities and assignments, rather than waste time and energy finding stuff where it might be. So things like to-do lists, or things where you can really have, a map. Sometimes if you're teaching a fully online course, having a navigation video in module 0 or unit 0 or week 0 really helps, because you can tell students how they should be navigating and where is what in the course. But then also maintaining that consistency, whether in terms of assignment due dates or due days. So every time an assignment is due on Wednesday, and so they don't really have to think about it. And right from the very first week, they get into that habit of, okay, well, for this particular course, I better make sure that I have done my readings and gone ahead and looked at my calendar, looked at my to-do list, and made sure that I finish and submit my assignment before the due date. So you can do it in multiple ways. Have to-do lists on your course. You can, when I was outside, somebody was talking about how we can add it to the calendar view. So Canvas has a really nice calendar option where they can actually go through the entire course through the calendar, having a schedule, and making sure that all of these different places that you have the same content and deadlines in is consistent, and you've gone ahead and made sure that there are no discrepancies between the dates at different locations. Any other pointers for navigation? All right. Yes.
I would recommend also making some sort of quick and easy link for communicating with the instructor, such as instructor's email address, if there's any like open discussion forums in the course, just to kind of streamline and make it easier without having to think about how do I get a hold of the instructor or the TA.
Absolutely. So easy access to the instructor or the TA. So just on the very front page, on the home page, a link for office hours, or a link for the email that can be sent directly to the instructor or to the TA. Maybe even having a FAQ section, so that over the years that you've been teaching this course, those are some of the questions that keep coming over and over again. And if you have them right there on an FAQ sections, you tell them from the very get-go that, hey, before you send an email to me or to the TA, go ahead and make sure that that question is not already been answered in the FAQs, or even having a discussion board. Now that we're in the age of artificial intelligence, and you can actually make your own digital twin if you wanted to. And then that way, if the student has a question at 2 a.m., they can just go to your digital twin and have the AI bot answer on your behalf, because the AI bot has already been trained and fed the syllabus as well as everything on the course, and it can answer questions like, when is this due? And answer all those questions, to which your response is, read the syllabus, or it's in module 0. And if you read it, you would have that answer. So, but with an AI bot, that can be configured as well. And if you really want to harness the power of artificial intelligence and bots.
Trupti online said, provide instructions on how to navigate instead of assuming the navigation is intuitive for students.
Yes, absolutely. And we all talk about our Gen Z as digital natives, and they know how to use all these technologies, and they can teach themselves with no time. and create this 30-second video and add all these filters and whatnot and publish it, but we cannot assume that they're equally savvy when it comes to instructional technology or technology meant for learning. So really giving them that scaffolding and helping them navigate through that is really helpful as well. Thank you. Oops, yeah, so I was just going to show you one of our home pages. So we have a start here. We have the email that we want the students to be sending the email to. And then, of course, we have an FAQ section and et cetera, et cetera. So if you go to the next page, that's another course where they've changed some of those icons at the beginning. So if you want to go to the syllabus, you want to go and reach the teaching assistants, you can go there. Assignment examples, and then you have a weekly schedule where they can either go to labs or no labs and so on and so forth, and each of those are buttons. And then going to the next page, they have this whole assignment and submission links based on the week and the deadline, and the links on how to submit, and some extra notes and comments going with it. All right, so those are some of the ways that you can actually use the Canvas in different and innovative ways to be able to help your students navigate easily and in a better way. All right, any other questions before we jump on to the G, the first G? All right, well, if no questions on Zoom either. All right, so generating meaning, and that's something that's really, really important because we want our students to be able to do or take what they're learning in class, but actually be able to connect the dots with either things that they already knew, that they've learned in other classes, or they have experienced and learned through experience, or things that they just experience in their daily lives, or things that are happening around them in the world. And for that, there are multiple strategies as well as some tools that you can use to be able to generate meaning. Some of them are like, I have some examples here, but what are some of the ways that you've helped students generate that meaning in your classes?
I'm fortunate in teaching engineering mechanics that it's easy for us to do the case studies. We take some real world structure like the Tower Crane and say, okay, let's analyze the loads on the Tower Crane or aircraft or everything. So it's easy for us to show what we do in class applies to what you see every day.
Perfect. So yes, if you want to take them to a construction site, you can actually give them real world examples. You could show them the video of how the Kyle Field was, and I agree. And it is always a challenge when there are more number of students, especially, going into 3 digits or sometimes even 4-digit number classrooms. And and then you add another layer of online students, that's another extra layer of, I would say, complexity when it comes to helping students generate that meaning. But there are ways. For example, case studies, those are very easily that can be brought into your teaching, whether you have them read about that case study or read that case study outside of the classroom, but then in classroom you have some discussions around it. You can also have them read one case study, but then bring something else that is related to that concept or that case study, but another example of it. So say, for example, you're doing a case study, which is maybe Amazon versus Barnes and Noble, and how they had their competitive advantage over the other company and so on and so forth. And then you want them to maybe bring in another case study, which is talking about similar competitive advantages or other competitive advantage. And so they might bring in another one for, say, for example, Apple versus Microsoft, or Adobe versus Apple or something else, and then basically have that discussion around it. Or not even a case study, maybe a news article or something that has a similar concept with it. You can also do something that's called a role playing, and that can be done in various different disciplines. One of the examples that I always love to bring out when it comes to role playing is there's a whole community of faculty and instructors, as well as instructional designers and from different universities that have a community called Reacting to the Past. And what they basically do in the Reacting to the Past is they think about a concept, whether it's, say, for example, the Civil War or the Indian independence, and some historical event, and this particular community has already created lots and lots of material, which is like makes it like a game. So you make have people in your class play that game as a role playing, where each student takes a particular role, and they have their text, they have their script, they have everything that they need to learn about that particular event, and then role play that during class. And as a result of which they understand what the event was like and what were the different implications of it, economic or religious or political and things like that, but then also give them a chance to then see what happened in the past with that event, to then be able to draw examples and connections to maybe what's happening today in the present. And so role playing really helps with not just reading about the event, but be able to really critically analyze and evaluate the event from that historical perspective, but then also from a present day perspective. So, and that doesn't have to be from a historical event. It could be anything in terms of a role play, whether it's I would say, like in construction science, I mean, they could be role playing a real architectural firm or a civil engineering firm, and have the different aspects of designing a project from scratch, and be able to do that role play along with actually working on the project itself. Any other examples or comments on Zoom? Or
No comments on Zoom right now. We do have about 5 minutes left.
I have 5 minutes left?
About 5. We can go a little over that.
He said 15. No? Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So from the generating meaning, going to the A, which is applying to the, can you go to the next one? We've already done some reflection and pausing. So one of the tools that, has anyone played with Padlet before? One person. All right, so Padlet is basically what I call a digital bulletin board. So we're all used to having a bulletin board. At least when I was in school, I had a bulletin board, and I could go and print things out or get newspaper cuttings when we really read a newspaper. And you could put it on the bulletin board with push pins, and then you could add other, and think about whatever the topic was, and then put all of that on the bulletin board as a group, and bring your spin to it. In that particular same, I guess, concept, with now more digital technology available at our hands, Padlet, which is Padlet, is available for the similar thing. So you can have a digital wall. You don't need to pay for it. It's a free tool, and you can have as many number of students in your class to be able to participate through a Padlet wall. And what they basically, and it makes it even more dynamic than our bulletin boards of the previous century, where it was only textual, and you could just have an image and a text based input on that bulletin board. Whereas in the Padlet wall, you could have multimedia content. You could add videos, you could record yourself and add that to the board. You could bring in news articles from wherever. You could bring in just an article from somewhere. You could add your documents to it. You could add your podcast or your own audio presentation to it. And you could add, of course, text and images as well. So Padlet really makes it a very engaging way, and you can use it in multiple different ways. I've had instructors use a Padlet for almost like having like a blog party. So you give a concept or give a topic, and you ask your students to bring in information, whether it's a blog or whether it's news articles or something on that particular topic, and bring it all together in the form of a bulletin board that can then be shared with all of the other students in the classroom and as well as the instructor. Nate and I have used Padlet in some of our professional development workshops, and we always ask faculty who come to those sessions about different types of barbecue and where they are from and what is the specialty of a Texas barbecue versus Memphis barbecue and so on and so forth. So you can really engage your students by having them bring in information from different kinds as well as from different sources and put it together in this engaging platform. So I would recommend that you guys give it a try, and it's really easy to use. You literally double click on it on the wall and it will give you the different input forms like audio, video, text, and images. All right, we've also some other tools, and as I said, I will share the handout as well as the presentation, but you can also use tools like Miro, which is also free for students as well as for instructors, and that can be used for concept mapping, brainstorming, and so on and so forth, making flowcharts and having like a process map, or and again, you can use it collaboratively with your students in groups or as a class, or you can also use that as assignments. Both Padlet and Miro can be used as assignments too. Also, they both have what they call as an embed code, which means that it can be embedded. Your wall can be embedded right within Canvas itself, so that the students don't even have to go to a separate website. They can actually just interact within the Canvas page or the Canvas course. Any questions? All right. Applying to the real world, and again, we've talked about why that is really important, and applying to the real world would mean either doing a project-based learning project or a problem-based learning project, so that they can actually, or maybe what we call service learning. But sometimes your courses or your discipline might not allow for something like a service learning project or a project-based learning project. But you can also apply to the real world in other forms. For example, making that relevant to what's happening in the real world, but then also maybe in a risk-free environment, for example, a game. And I always like to talk about games because that's my area of research. So if you go to the next slide, I think there's a Jenga. There is not. Workshop with games. Okay, so yes, so this was one of the workshops I did, and everybody was basically playing a board game in class, but they can also be doing an online game or a game on an app. But let's say an example, a very simple example of Monopoly. Everybody has played Monopoly, but if you think about now playing Monopoly and adding some learning elements to it and think about how Monopoly can teach us different things, for example, asset management, or negotiation, or resource management, resource allocation, and so on and so forth, then suddenly they're now being able to apply in a risk-free environment those concepts and principles that they're learning in class, but in a risk-free environment like a game environment. There are also other games available that teach different things. For example, there's Civilization. Has anyone played Civilization? Okay, so what did you think Civilization was teaching you if you were to think and deconstruct your playing experience?
I feel like Civilization, also Age of Empires, has a lot of historical tidbits in it about, unique units for each civilization, what the civilization's relative strengths are, although their accuracy could be questioned.
Right.
Are you imagining that the games are designed by you to have like a lot of so if I'm teaching an engineering course, would it be like the games involve every turn the students like do math, serious math?
So that's a very good question. So designing games yourself is an expensive ordeal. It's you need a lot of resources. You need people who are game designers and whatnot. There's also an option where there are certain games that you can repurpose for teaching. So, for example, they're not really being marketed as learning games, but they are entertainment games. But if you add your I guess, debriefing along with it, and you scaffold that with your with you by by you adding that debriefing component and things like that, you can actually use that game as a medium to teach certain concepts, but not necessarily just by playing the game, but by you adding your layer of how to connect those dots.
Gotcha.
And
So-
have the students also critically think about how they can connect those dots. I've also had in some classes where the students designed the games together as groups, where they had to use the concept that they were learning in class and implement those in the design, in the game itself, so that somebody else, when they pick up their game, they will be able to learn those concepts. So that's another way of looking at it. But I understand that developing a game always is not a possibility. Do you have any other thoughts or? All right. Okay, well, I've been told that there's less time left. So let's go to the next one and go from applying to the, you can go to the next one. And gauging. So gauging is really important because it's two-way. You want to be able to help students gauge how they are doing. You want to be able to gauge how they're doing because you don't want to get to the end of the semester and then realize that your class didn't go very well, or you want to be able to make certain changes before it's too late as an instructor. But then also you don't want to give students a surprise or a shock at the end of the semester that they actually ended up getting a C. So giving them the chance to gauge, for example, using formative assessments, so low stake assessments like the polls that we did here, or giving them a little quiz at the end of every class period, or giving them a exit ticket, like having them fill out a form as to what they understood, what they are still have some doubts about, so that when you get that information, you can then make some changes and think about the next class. So exit tickets or muddiest point form, polls, and so on and so forth can really help with those formative assessments and understanding, engaging where your students are, as well as where you stand in terms of your teaching. And then going to the next one, extending that beyond the classroom. And again, we've already talked about some of those things in the applying, or the A part of the engage, of the word engage, which is to be able to extend it from just what they're learning in class to real world, to be able to apply to real world problems, whether in a actual project-based learning project or in a risk-free environment with like simulations, or for example, in the disaster center, you can do it in a risk-free environment and practice and simulate. A lot of things in health sciences you can do with virtual reality and augmented reality, where you can learn how to put an IV, but not really, on a real patient, and make them all green on their, or, by, I don't know, whatever they call it. But basically, you can actually do it in a risk-free environment and still be able to practice and extend it beyond just the textbook. Any other questions?
We had a comment in the chat. David said, some students are coming to us from community colleges that are using virtual learning experiences that are scaffolded in the classroom.
Yes, so by virtual learning experiences, does that mean they're doing something outside of the classroom in an online environment, or is it like virtual experiences in the terms of virtual reality and augmented reality?
I'm not sure. I'll let David chime in a little bit more there to extend that. Virtual reality.
Virtual
back
reality.
to the gaming. I think that was posted when we were talking about the gaming.
All right. So yes, so you do all of that outside of the classroom, and you have those experiences, whether it's a virtual experience or a game that they've played, but then actually come to class and be able to discuss and debrief and be able to connect those dots along with the instructor's guidance and coaching. So that's something that's really helpful as well, both in the applying to the real world as well as extending it into the real world from what you're learning in the classroom. All right, so that makes it E.N.G.A.G.E, energize, navigate, generate meaning, apply to the real world, gauge, and extend outside of the classroom to action. Any questions? Thoughts?
Myra in the chat also said it's also simulations and virtual tours as well.
Yes. And yeah, there are multiple different ways you can do virtual tours or create virtual tours. We've actually done that one in women and gender studies, where the first semester we asked students to generate content for the tour. And in the next semester, using that content, we actually created a virtual tour so that the next semester students can experience the virtual tour that explains the history of women on this campus at different locations. So all of those things are possible. The possibilities are limitless and endless. It's just about thinking about it from a perspective of what's helpful in learning and what's out there in terms of technology and how that can help. And you always don't have to have a solution or will get a solution from technology, because sometimes just a flip chart and Sharpie is the best way to go about it. All right. Well, thank you all. Once again, I will share the presentation as well as a little handout that you can work with as when you start thinking about your student engagement plan. I will share that with CJ.